One spilled glass of champagne. That's all it took to turn Sophia's carefully controlled world into sparkling chaos. But when Ethan steps in, steady hands, teasing grin, what begins as a champagne fiasco sparks something neither of them can ignore. Except not everyone is raising a glass to their connection. Behind the candlelight, Sophia's father has his own warnings, and his disapproval might cost her more than her reputation. Caught between laughter, family pressure, and a stolen moment on the balcony, Sophia has to choose: guard her heart or risk it all for the man who sees through every layer of her armor. This is the best man's vows, and trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. You're listening to The Velvet Story. Subscribe now, and let's step into Chapter 21, The Champagne Fiasco. The sun had dipped low, spilling gold and pink across the reception hall. Everything gleamed, flowers perfectly arranged, candles flickering, crystal glasses sparkling. Sophia felt a rare sense of satisfaction. She had survived another day of near disasters, rogue vendors, and her father's subtle but persistent oversight. And now, champagne. Not just any champagne, the vintage they'd spent a small fortune on. Flutes lined up like soldiers, ready to celebrate the bride and groom's rehearsal toast. Sophia's heart thumped with cautious optimism as she floated toward the serving table. Ethan followed at her elbow, his hand brushing hers, that electric familiarity sparking under her skin. "Careful," he murmured, eyebrows arched. "This is delicate like you." "Delicate like me," she shot back. "I'm composed, thank you very much." Composed until someone hands you a tray of fizzy liquid in a glass that could cut glass. Then all bets are off. Sophia rolled her eyes, but the corners of her mouth twitched. Ethan had a knack for disarming her, even in the midst of chaos. She reached for a flute, balancing the tray carefully. All seemed fine, until she stepped back. Ethan's eyes widened, and then, almost in slow motion, he yanked a napkin from the table, swiping at the spill. "It's fine, don't panic." But Sophia wasn't panicking. She was glaring, furious yet helplessly flustered. "Fine? My designer heels could be ruined." He laughed, warm and teasing, bending to clean the foam from the edge of the table. "Then let's call it sparkling disaster chic." She groaned. "You're impossible." "Correction," he said, standing upright, holding her gaze. "I'm charmingly inevitable." The bride passed by at that moment, pausing mid-laugh. "Everything okay here?" she asked, eyeing the spilled champagne and Ethan crouched with napkins. Sophia flushed. "Just a minor incident." Ethan flashed the bride a winning grin. Crisis averted. Nothing to see. Smooth recovery, all in a day's work. Sophia groaned audibly and wiped at her temple with a napkin, muttering, "I'm going to need a new pair of heels." Ethan leaned closer, voice low and teasing. "Or maybe you just need someone to carry you through the disasters. I volunteer." Her chest skipped. "Volunteer?" she asked, her tone skeptical yet intrigued. "Of course. I'm licensed in disaster rescue, emotional support, and witty banter," he said with mock seriousness. Sophia snorted a laugh despite herself, shaking her head. "You really do think of everything." He tilted his head, eyes twinkling. "Not everything, but I do think of you." Her pulse jumped. She could feel it against her skin, a warmth that had nothing to do with the champagne. Or maybe it did, in the way adrenaline often mingled with laughter and embarrassment. Before she could respond, a waiter stumbled nearby, sending another tray tipping dangerously. Sophia instinctively reached out. Ethan caught her hand, steadying her once more. "See?" he murmured, brushing the stray bubbles from her fingers. I told you I'd handle it. Her lips twitched into a reluctant smile. I see that. And, he asked, leaning just a fraction closer, are you going to admit that this, he gestured at the chaos, at the sparkling champagne, at them, is kind of fun? Sophia shook her head, laughing despite herself. Don't push it, Cole. Pushing is part of my charm, and I'm only getting started. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. She forgot about the tabloids, her father's warnings, Juliet's venom. There was only laughter, bubbles, and him. Steady, flirty, infuriatingly perfect in the moment. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't want it any other way. Chapter 22. Family Pressure. The rehearsal dinner had barely ended when Sophia felt the familiar tug of her father's gaze. Even across the candlelit dining hall, she could sense it. Disapproval cloaked in polite smiles, expectation hidden behind a perfectly knotted tie. She excused herself from a group of laughing bridesmaids and made her way toward him. The laughter clung to her skin like perfume, but her pulse quickened. She knew what was coming. "Father," she greeted coolly, offering a kiss to his cheek. Laurent Dubois was a man of presence. His silver hair gleamed under the chandeliers, his bespoke suit crisp enough to cut glass. He was charm and power blended seamlessly, a businessman who built empires with the same ease other men ordered wine. He kissed her cheek in return, but his eyes were sharp. "Sophia, a word." She nodded, following him through the side doors into a quieter hallway, the music and chatter muffled behind them, the silence heavy as marble. Her father wasted no time. "You were careless tonight." Sophia stiffened. Careless? Nothing went wrong. The champagne spill was handled. Not the champagne. His tone was sharp, cutting. "Your behavior." Her spine straightened. "Behavior?" "With him," Laurent said, his voice low, loaded. "Ethan Cole, laughing, smiling, in plain sight of half the city's elite. You looked," he paused, as if the word itself was offensive, "unrestrained." Sophia's jaw clenched. "You make it sound like a crime." "In our world, it can be." His eyes bored into hers. "You cannot afford frivolity, not with your name, not with your business. Every whisper finds its way to the press, and Ethan Cole, while competent in his own ventures, is a man with a reputation. He is not a shield, he is a risk." The words hit harder than she wanted them to, because she knew what he meant. She'd read the headlines. Ethan Cole, the charismatic billionaire, photographed at galas, always laughing, always flanked by beauty, the man the press adored, spinning into a charming caricature. Her throat tightened, but she forced her voice steady. "Ethan isn't a risk to me." Her father arched a brow. "No? Then why do you look rattled?" Her silence betrayed her. She hated it. Before she could respond, another voice cut into the charged air. "I didn't mean to interrupt," Ethan drawled casually, stepping into the hallway. He held 2 glasses of champagne, as if he'd only come searching for her. His eyes, however, flicked from Sophia to her father with an unsettling sharpness. "But I couldn't help overhearing. You were talking about me, weren't you?" Sophia's heart leapt. "Ethan," her father's expression hardened. "This is a private conversation." Ethan's smile didn't waver. Funny, because Sophia doesn't look like she wanted it to be private. He stepped closer, offering her one of the glasses. She didn't take it, her hand frozen at her side. His eyes softened when they met hers before he turned back to Laurent. "I understand your concern, sir, but you're wrong about me." Laurent let out a short, cold laugh. "You think charm excuses everything?" "No," Ethan said smoothly. His voice was calm, unshaken, but carried an undercurrent of steel. I think integrity does. And if you'd bothered to look past the gossip columns, you'd know I've built businesses from the ground up, partnerships that employ thousands, and I've never once compromised what I stand for. The air tightened. Sophia had never seen Ethan like this. Not flirty, not playful, steady. A man refusing to bend under scrutiny. Her father studied him, expression unreadable. "You expect me to take you seriously?" Ethan's eyes didn't falter. "No, I expect Sophia to decide who she takes seriously, and I trust her enough to know she'll make the right choice." Sophia's breath caught. Heat surged in her chest, a dangerous mix of defiance and something warmer. Respect, admiration, desire. Her father's silence stretched. Finally, he gave Sophia a pointed look, then turned on his heel. "Be careful," he warned, and disappeared back into the hall. The quiet left behind was deafening. Sophia turned to Ethan, emotions colliding too quickly to name. "You shouldn't have stood up for you." His voice was softer now, gentler. "I don't regret it. You don't understand. He doesn't forgive easily. This will only make things harder." "Then let it be harder," Ethan said simply. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sophia, I don't play games with the things I want, and right now, that's you." Her heart thundered so hard she thought it might crack. She wanted to argue, to push back, to remind him of her father, the press, the expectations. But all she could think was how steady his voice was, how unwavering his gaze felt. For the first time in years, someone wasn't telling her what she should do. He was telling her he believed in what she could choose. And that was more terrifying than any gossip column. Chapter 23. The Balcony Encounter. The night had thinned. Guests were beginning to drift away from the rehearsal dinner, their laughter dissolving into the city's hum as town cars lined up outside the glittering venue. The ballroom, once alive with chatter and clinking glasses, now shimmered with the languid glow of half-burned candles and empty champagne flutes. Sophia lingered at the edge of the room, her shoulders tight, her father's words replaying like a looping headline. Careless. Unrestrained. A risk. The weight of it pressed on her, as familiar as the scent of her family's expectations. She needed air, again. Slipping through the French doors, she stepped onto the grand balcony that wrapped around the venue. The night air was cooler now, carrying the faint tang of the Hudson. Above her, stars fought against the city lights, faint but steady. She braced her hands against the stone railing, closed her eyes, and breathed in deeply. For a moment, there was peace. Then she heard him. "Careful, Sophia. Someone might think you've developed a bad habit of running away from parties." Her eyes snapped open. Ethan was leaning against the far side of the railing. Jacket gone, sleeves rolled to his forearms, bow tie loosened at his throat. His posture was casual, but his gaze, focused entirely on her, was anything but. She exhaled sharply. "Do you follow me everywhere?" "No," he said, straightening and strolling toward her. "But if I did, I'd call it foresight, not stalking." Her lips twitched against her will. "You always have a comeback, don't you?" "Only when I'm trying to distract a woman from frowning herself into a migraine." He stopped beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth against the cool night. Sophia turned her face away, staring down at the glittering city. "My father won't let this go." "I know." His tone was even. No judgment, no mockery. Just steady acknowledgement. "And you," she continued, frustration lacing her voice, "had to walk right into the line of fire, defending me like a man who doesn't mind fire?" He offered lightly. Sophia whipped her gaze back to him. irritation sparking, but his eyes, calm, amused, and utterly unshaken, pulled the sting out of her anger. "You think this is funny?"
Not funny. He leaned his elbows on the railing, turning his body toward her. "I think it's honest and refreshing, and maybe the first time your father has heard someone tell him no in decades." She let out a sharp laugh. "You're insane." "Probably," Ethan admitted. His voice dipped, quieter now. "But I meant every word." The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but taut, like a violin string drawn too tight. Sophia stared at him, at the flicker of candlelight from the ballroom catching the edge of his jaw, at the easy steadiness that never wavered. "Why?" she asked suddenly. The word came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't retract it. "Why bother? You don't know what this costs me, what he can do to my business, my reputation. Why step into the middle of it?" Ethan's answer was simple, immediate. "Because you're worth it." The words punched the air from her lungs. She blinked, startled. "You don't even." "I do." He cut her off gently, firmly. "I know enough. I've watched you juggle crises without breaking. I've watched you hold a room of egos together without raising your voice. I've watched you put everyone else's comfort before your own, even when you're exhausted. And I know," his eyes searched hers, steady and intent, "that somewhere under all that control is a woman who just wants someone to stand beside her, without asking her to shrink." Her throat burned. She wanted to scoff, to deflect, to tell him he was wrong, but her defenses cracked under the weight of his gaze. "You make it sound simple," she whispered. "It is simple," he replied softly. "The world makes it complicated. But this," he gestured between them, the invisible tether she pretended not to feel, "this doesn't have to be." Sophia's chest ached with the war waging inside her. Her father's voice clashed with Ethan's. Duty versus desire. Reputation versus freedom. "You'll get tired of it," she said at last, her voice brittle. "Of the headlines, of the whispers, of being called my chaos." Ethan's lips curved. "Sophia, I don't scare easily, and I sure as hell don't run because someone calls me names in a column." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I've built my world brick by brick. I can weather scandal, but I'm not going to let you convince yourself that you're too much to be worth it, because you're not." Her heart thudded. She felt the pull, magnetic, undeniable. His nearness blurred the edges of her resolve. He reached out then, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His fingers brushed hers against the railing, warm and deliberate. She didn't move. For a suspended moment, neither spoke. The city hummed below, the candles flickered inside, and the night held its breath. Sophia finally looked at him, her eyes raw, unshielded. "Sophia." "Yes?" His voice was a thread, patient and steady. She swallowed hard. "You're impossible." His smile was faint, but it reached his eyes. "Correction. I'm not going anywhere." The tension coiled tighter, a promise unspoken. And though Sophia pulled her hand back at the last second, because walls don't fall in a single night, the warmth of his touch lingered like fire on her skin. For the first time in years, she didn't feel entirely alone on the balcony of her life. From spilled champagne to stolen glances on a balcony, Sophia and Ethan's world are colliding in ways no one planned. But with her father's shadow growing heavier and whispers of scandal waiting to strike, their fragile spark may not survive the night. Will she risk her future for the man who refuses to let her stand alone? Or will family loyalty break them before they begin? Don't miss what comes next in The Best Man's Vows. Follow The Velvet Story and turn on notifications because the next chapter will change everything.